So what I actually did was I applied for their technology summer analyst role, which is a software engineering internship. And the entire interview process was like lead code stuff, a little bit of behavioral, so your typical software engineering interview. And then when I got in, I actually asked to work on data science instead because I knew that at a company that large, they're working. If they have in-house software engineers, they have in-house data scientists and data engineers. And I know that like those lines in between these roles are actually pretty blurred. So I took a chance there, and I was like, hey, like, can I actually work with data science instead? Because I'm more interested in that topic. And a combination of luck was in my favor, and I was able to do that.
Hello everyone, Ken here, back with another fun interview for you. Today I had the pleasure of talking with Tina Huang. Tina recently landed a data science job at one of the FAANG companies, and she's been producing some awesome YouTube content about how she set herself up for success during the interview process. I think Tina's story is fascinating because she truly focused on working smarter rather than harder. In this interview, we talk about how she went from a pharmacology background to the data science career path, how she decided on pursuing a master's degree in computer and information technology, and how you can learn from her success during the rigorous FAANG interview process. I will link Tina's YouTube channel above, below, and at the end of this video, so definitely stay tuned till we finish up here. I also wanted to do a quick plug for the 66 Days of Data Challenge. It started a couple days ago, but you don't have to start with me. You can start this initiative whenever you want to. The only requirements are one, that you study some form of data science at least 5 minutes a day for 66 days straight. And the second one is to share it on any platform you're comfortable with. One of the biggest things associated with this is we're trying to create good habits. The first habit we're trying to create is consistency. And the second one is accountability and getting comfortable with sharing with our peers. So, that's it for the 66 days of data stuff. Definitely get excited about the rest of this interview here. So, hi Tina, thank you so much for agreeing to sit down and chat with me today. You have such an interesting background. I know that you recently landed a job at one of the FAANG companies, which is a very hot topic for a lot of the people on my channel. They're always asking, okay, how do I interview? How do I get a job at these companies? And you came through a master's of computer science program, which is very similar to my background. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you did not have very much computer science experience before going into that. Is that correct?
Zero experience.
Okay, that's the exact same thing that I did, with none going into it. It's kind of 0 to 100 real quick. So yeah, I would love to hear first about like a little bit about yourself and also about how you first got interested in data science. Then we can kind of roll into how you learned these skills and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. So my background, I did my undergraduate in pharmacology. I was actually pre-med. I was pre-med for a very long time until I decided I would be a terrible doctor. So instead of putting my potential patients through this, I decided to go do something else. But I didn't know what to do with myself, so I actually started working under a professor, working in bioinformatics. Didn't know how to code, didn't know anything, so I kind of just learned on the job. I learned how to code a little bit in R, but I had like no computer science background. So I did that for about a year, and then I was like, you know what, might as well just jump straight into it and go into computer science. So I did my master's in computer science at the University of Pennsylvania. This is a program specifically designed for people who don't have a computer science background, so it was like perfect for me. And when I was in the master's program, I interned at Goldman Sachs, where I did data science. And then now, like you said before, I work at a FAANG company doing data science as well.
That's awesome. Well, you've kind of went through almost one of the recommended routes for breaking into this field. And so first, you didn't just jump into data science from pharmacology. You found a middle ground, which was bioinformatics. It's combining a lot of the things that you already know with a little bit of that data science skill set. You tested the water, you clearly realized you were interested in it, and then you took that next step, which can be going to grad school, which can be doing more projects and applying as an analyst, which can be doing a boot camp, which can be a bunch of different things which really depends on your own personal situation. Obviously, actually, the UPenn program was one of the ones that I looked at. I was looking at there, DePaul, UChicago. I think Syracuse has one as well. I didn't go to the UPenn one because it starts at a very specific time of the year, and I missed the deadline, so I would have had to start a full year later. So I went to DePaul because I could start right away. So we barely missed being classmates by a couple years and a couple decisions on my part, but I digress. So when you were going through this learning process, what was difficult for you? What was easy for you? How did you start picking up these skills? You said you were learning R through your research. How did that progress? How did you get to where you are today on the skill acquisition portion?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, I'm a big believer of minimizing effort and maximizing your outcome. And what that basically means is that I refuse to do extra work that is not going towards my goal. So the reason why I jumped into bioinformatics is because that is a credible job that transitions into data science. So I didn't know exactly I was going to go into like the Penn program or anything at that time. But after I tested the waters a little bit, I was like, okay, I want to do something data science or, even computer science related. So I got a job that kind of bridges that gap. And the way that I do skill acquisition is I don't really believe in learning things just like kind of by yourself without knowing what it is that you actually have to learn or what you're going to be using it for. So that's why I got the job first. And then I learned, very aggressively, very quickly on the job. So I knew everything that I was learning exactly would translate to what I would be producing and impacting in the future. And that's kind of the approach that I've taken throughout my entire education and career. So when I was like, for example, here, I didn't know any SQL when I was applying for the data science position that I have now. So first I decided I want to apply to this position, and these are the things I don't know how to do. So I will go and learn aggressively on those things, and then those are the exact things that they're going to ask me about in interviews. So then I would be able to pass the interviews like that. I hope that answers your question.
No, that absolutely does. I think that's something that I always want to highlight is, you didn't explicitly say it, but that is a very project and problem-oriented approach. A lot of people think, oh, I have to build the foundation of the house before I put anything else on it. But, we're not doing construction, we're doing data science. Coding is as agile. You should be thinking about, okay, this is the problem I want to solve. I want to get this job. What exactly do I need to do to make that a reality? And, one thing I live my life by, it's called the Pareto principle. And so the idea is that basically 20% of the things produce 80% of the results. And I think that you're probably really good at finding out what those 20% of the things are and executing on them. I know in my academic career personally, I wasted so much time learning stuff that I didn't need to. Honestly, it's unbelievable. I like learning, so it's not any real, sweat off my back, whatever it might be. But if I really think back, I could have, in my classes even, thinking about what's on the tests, I way overstudied. I was one of those people. I probably could have studied, in theory, half the amount of time and still got within a couple percentage points on almost every test I ever took, if I just thought about it a little different and thought about, okay, what does the teacher care about? What are the things that really matter there? So I really like that. I could talk about that probably all day, as I've already started to ramble a little bit. But, can you talk a bit more to me about your decision to pursue that master's in computer science, perhaps compared to a master's in data science or some of the other options that are out there?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, just to your point earlier, I really admire people like you, like that you can actually focus and learn and study. I am the exact opposite of you. I was a very terrible student. I probably didn't even show up to class half the time because I just I don't know. I just am bad at school. So I have to find that 20% to actually get me those results, where else I would literally fail. So that's kind of a skill set I've developed throughout the years, to achieve my goal, because I also have really high standards for myself. So if I actually didn't care and was whatever, then that's probably fine as well. But because I want to have these things, yet I'm unable to just concentrate for long enough and to learn all the bases. So that's how I kind of stumbled upon this 20/80 rule. But yeah.
Well, it's interesting you say that. So until my junior year of college, was an awful student. I don't think I ever got an A in a class. And I wrote a Medium article about how I transformed from being this really terrible student to becoming a good student. And there's a lot of similarities there. Although I didn't take the project approach at the time, what really sparked things for me is I found a couple of courses that I was interested in. I'd never taken an economics course. The first economics course I took, I was like, wow, this is cool. I get this. This resonates with me. And I was like, wow, school can be fun. I had one of those moments. And then that was like a big pivotal moment for me. But to your point, it's like figuring out what works for you, right? For me, it was take more economics courses. That's a no-brainer. For you, it's like, okay, how do I just make this focus on the small things? I do those well, and I ignore the boring stuff because I know I'm not going to focus on it. And so I think that at a broader level, that suggests that, hey, everyone does have to do a little bit of personal discovery to figure out what works for them. And that to me is something people are really scared to do, because you're scared to look in the mirror and say, oh, I'm not good at this. Or, right now, because everyone can become good at any of these skills. I'm a firm believer in it. But yeah, sorry, I kind of weaved it back, no. but I'd love to hear more about your decision, after that bioinformatics research.
Yeah. Okay, so what happened was I was doing bioinformatics, and then I realized, I like that data science aspect of it, especially because I really like the idea of discovering things and analyzing data in order to fuel those discoveries and ultimately drive impact. I like it better than actually going out and building something that's a very engineering-based approach. So based upon that insight, I realized that data science, which is some sort of like data analytics, is what's very suitable for me. And I also realized that it doesn't have to be in biology. It just happens that my background was in biology, but this is something that can be applied to pretty much anything, right? It's essentially just a scientific method. So the reason why I chose to go with computer science instead of data science, though, is because as I was working, I realized how important it was to actually understand computer science fundamentals, that is. For example, if you ever try to make a model or do something from scratch by yourself, you will quickly realize, especially if you have a lot of data, that the thing is going to take forever to run. Why is that, right? That is a computer science algorithms concept. And if you knew about Big O and these other computer science things, then you would be able to much better and much more efficiently build models, do other data science aspects. So that's why I was I could go into data science, but I could also go into computer science. So I thought it would be much more valuable if I went into computer science and then just took a lot of data science courses.
Awesome. And I imagine you probably had a reasonable foundation in the math stuff from the bioinformatics experience as well. None? Okay, never mind.
No, I know. I had literally, I took one calculus class and one statistics class. That was literally it. I actually talked about this before as well. I failed my first test ever in discrete math when I went into my master's. I had never seen proofs in my life, did not know what anything was. So yeah, I actually had a very, very weak math background.
Interesting. Well, that's really good to hear for pretty much everyone that watches these videos, because one of the most common questions I get asked is, do you have to be good at math? And I mean, the answer I think is still yes, but yeah. You don't have to start good at math, right? You can become good at math, or you can get good at the math concepts that are relevant to the problems that you're solving, right?
Yeah.
To me, I think that's what people always forget, is they think that they're bad at programming or bad at math, and that means they're going to be bad at those things forever. And it's you're definitely not going to get a job in this field if you're bad at both of those. But that's not something that's static, right? That's something you can work on. That's something you can improve on. I was objectively bad at both of those even 6-7 years ago, and I would hope I'm pretty good at them now. So
growth mindset, that's what's important.
Exactly.
You need to think about in terms of growth, because I don't know why, but people see math as one of those things I'm either good at it or bad at it, which doesn't make any sense, right? That's the same. If we put this into another scenario, are you bad at Spanish? I don't know, maybe you do speak Spanish. I don't speak Spanish, but if you oh, there you go.
No, I'm kidding. My Spanish is...
Okay. whatever language that you don't need to know. Are you just like, oh man, I'm like, so stupid. I can't learn this language. Well, it's because you didn't learn the language, right? Like
Exactly.
math is the same over here. It's like, it's not like someone's just like naturally good at math. Like maybe some people are more talented. Maybe they're just better at learning in that area, but that doesn't mean you can't get better at it, right?
Yeah, well, it's also something related to complementary skills as well, right? If that's pretty much all the Spanish I know. If I spoke four other languages,
Mm-hmm.
it would probably be easier for me to pick up another language because I understand how languages work fundamentally. Same thing with math is that if you're studying a lot of, if you're interested in physics personally, or you're interested in parallel fields, even programming is a parallel field to math. You have to understand some discrete math to be able to, look at algorithmic complexity, things like that. People don't realize that if they don't have any exposure to that whole domain, it's going to be really hard to learn math because you have no frame of reference. The more frames of reference you have, the easier it's going to be because you've seen similar things, and that's exactly how our brain works, right? We're like, oh, that's similar. Can I relate it here? Oh, yes. Okay, I can, But I kind of digress. I'm fascinated with personal growth. It's like
me too.
I don't have any of my books here after I moved. They're all in storage in Chicago, but it was like a whole wall of books related to that. I can't get enough. I
feel like we can just have a whole conversation about this at some point, like
a whole nother channel,
right?
But so, with the masters in CS, do you feel like that was a good decision on your part? Do you think you could have forgone that? I mean, I'm a big believer that it really depends on the person for who it works for. I mean, me personally, if it was me now with my discipline and stuff, I would have never done a master's. But 5 years ago, I needed the structure. I needed to pay money to like get myself to do it. Where did you fall in that spectrum? Obviously, it worked well enough to get you to contribute to your work and your professional career. But I'd love more thoughts, context on that.
Yeah, for sure. So let's just say Tina 2 years ago, did not get, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but I basically did not get any, my life is very terrible at that time. Everything was all over the place. I was like literally panicking every day and unfocused, disorganized. Not that I'm organized now, but I was even worse before. So if I didn't have this degree, there was no way that I could be where I am right now. So for me at that time, I think it was a really, really good decision. If like Tina now, to be honest, I still would get this degree because for me, I wanted to work at a company that I'm working at now, and it's definitely doable if you don't have a degree and you learn it by yourself, but you also have to spend a lot more time networking, referrals, just trying to find a way to even get that first round interview. Oftentimes, if you don't have a computer science degree or anything technical, it's hard to get that interview to begin with. And I feel like if you're going for software engineering, for example, it's a lot easier. That path is paved a little bit better. But if you're going for like data science, entry-level data science positions, it's there's so much competition for those specific positions. And the bar is like already pretty high. So to even get that interview was really hard. And that was, I think, what my degree helped me the most with.
Awesome. And so let's not talk about your current work. Let's talk about your first internship and how that came about. I think that's something that I really highlight is that if you get an internship, more often than any other type of experience, that can lead into an eventual role. Or that at least is a really good story because that is real world experience. What was that process like? What did you learn from that? I know you touched on it a little bit, but I'd love to kind of peel back some more of the layers there.
Are we talking about in bioinformatics or Goldman Sachs, which was like my proper? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, my proper internship. So the first question was like, how did I get it? Or like, what did I learn about it? Sorry.
Just the whole process. So, what was application like? And also what was the experience like? Probably more on the application side and actually getting the job.
Yeah. So I went through actually a unconventional way of getting that internship. So I had a little bit of data science from my bioinformatics days, but I don't, it's not really counted as data science, really. So I knew I couldn't get that first round interview. Like I tried, it didn't work out. That was just like not gonna happen. So what I actually did was I applied for their technology summer analyst role, which is a software engineering internship. And the entire interview process was like lead code stuff, a little bit of behavioral, so your typical software engineering interview. And then when I got in, I actually asked to work on data science instead because I knew that at a company that large, they're working. If they have in-house software engineers, they have in-house data scientists and data engineers. And I know that like those lines in between these roles are actually pretty blurred. So I took a chance there, and I was like, hey, like, could I actually work with data science instead? Because I'm more interested in that topic. And a combination of luck was in my favor, and I was able to do that. My team was really, really nice, and they were mostly doing software engineering and data engineering, but they let me work on data science specifically. So yeah, that was how I got my data science internship.
Well, I'm glad I asked that question because that is a very, very unique approach that I've never covered before, is that once you're in with these companies, you do have options. I mean, they hire interns, one, because they think they could become good employees. Like, you never hire an intern because you're like, they're going to do great work and they're going to change the company's direction and all this stuff. You know that they're all learning. But so they want to make your experience as good as possible. And like, there's never any harm in asking for what you want if it's within reason. And you also found a way to get in with a lower barrier of entry. If you're competing with data science candidates, just like you said, maybe you didn't at the time have the firepower that they did academically or the as much of a story to tell about that, but you found a way in, and once you're in, you have a ton of freedom. That's something that I really like to highlight. The conversation I had with Danny Ma a while ago, he got into a company as a data analyst, maybe even in data entry, and he just said he wanted to work on certain projects. He asked his boss if he had free time, he worked on these things. And by the end, he was doing mostly data science work because that's where he felt he could create the most value, and that's what he said he wanted to do. So it's not, just because your title isn't even data scientist doesn't mean you can't be doing those works, and titles are pretty fickle. You can change those pretty easily. So that is so cool. I for everyone, that is definitely something I've not covered before. You should definitely make a video on that.
I have.
Oh, then I'll link it. Send me what it is. I will 100% link that one.
Yeah, for sure. I like very much described by that. If it doesn't work out, right, play to your strengths. Like, for example, they did have like a math test as well that you have to do in order to go for the data science track, and there was like literally no way I could do that to begin with. So I was like, like, whatever. The worst that they can say to me is like, no, you have to do software engineering, which I don't think
got the job,
bad at all. Yeah, exactly. Like that's like the worst case scenario, and like it's not like software engineering is terrible, right? So yeah.
Very true. So I obviously stress projects quite a bit in my on my channel, in my mediums. Were there any specific projects you did, or are there any things that you put out there that you felt really set yourself apart? I mean, you did have very good experience from the bioinformatics research and the actual internship, which I think generally trumps projects, but did you supplement those in any way with those types of things?
Yeah, so again, this is like kind of my entire approach. I don't really believe in doing things extra. So I could do lots of I call these like personal projects where you get to learn things, right? And I think they, like, don't get me wrong, those are great if you want to learn stuff. But if you want to put stuff on your resume, that's probably, a lot of people have that exact thing you probably did already on their resume. So I try to make it more about like impact-based work because data scientists, like, we are judged mostly on how much value we can offer, right? Like how much impact that we can have to drive a decision, to figure out a problem, to find a solution, not so much like how many deep learning things you can do. So I focus very much on that. So the projects, you want to call that I did was, firstly, I did like research with professors, because that was kind of like they did the work for me. This is clearly an impactful project. I just have to do the project, right?
Agreed.
And the professor is like good name, and you get a publication if you're lucky, like
and
no
maybe
guarantee.
A referral.
Exactly, and that happened to me as well. So that really helped me. And another thing that I did was pro bono consulting. So this one, I think, is something people don't really talk about that much, and I think it's actually a really, really good approach to it. Because in a way, being a data scientist, a lot of times you are kind of like consultant. You're just a much more like better consulting in terms of data sense. Like you do it with data, you do it with coding, but in the end, what you're figuring out, it's still something that's supposed to drive a decision, right? Like generally speaking, you're supposed to drive a decision or impact on a solution. So that's actually very similar to consulting. I signed up for one of those projects and I took over the analytics role. And this one is specifically for social media marketing. And I figured out, what it is that they could be working on, did some analytics on it, and found some like factors that were contributing most towards what was driving their traffic right now and places that they can look into so that they can increase their traffic in the future. And I think that was a project that was really different from most people. And when I was recruiting, going through that process, a lot of people brought that up to me in terms of the interviewers. They would like ask me about that specific project because it's not something they see very commonly. And I think that was something that definitely made me stand out. Also highlighted communication skills and soft skills, which is also extremely important to data scientists. Again, nobody cares what fancy thing you did if you can't
explain it,
talk about it. See, I can't even explain it now. Exactly. See? Yeah, if you can't explain it, nobody cares, right? So that really emphasized the fact that I was also able to communicate these insights I discovered, and I was actually able to do something with it.
That's awesome. I think that I view that as a project, but a project with a true outcome. And that's what I hope I really stress, is that you want people to use your projects. You want your projects to have value to some end user all the time. It can be value to you. Let's say I do some analysis of my health or my YouTube data, right? I get some positive outcome out of those, hopefully, unless it's like can't eat less fried chicken or something, which I would refuse because no. But there's still an end user. There's still value created for someone. If you can show that your projects have impact on someone, that is by definition, just like you said, what a data scientist should be doing. I would love to hear how you actually got hooked on for that project. Was it through school? Was it through, some other mediums?
Yeah, so this one was through school. There was a consulting club. So I just kind of like joined. I was like the only person who was not in business and stuff, which in a way like made me more valuable, I guess. But I do know there's actually a lot of these pro bono consulting gigs just kind of flying around. If you look them up, there's definitely a list of it that you can join out of school as well. You just need to kind of like put in the effort to find them.
Yeah, well, so you brought up something that I love, which was joining clubs at school. That's something for college students, I highly recommend. If there aren't data science clubs or things like that, make one. That looks really good on your resume too. I started a couple clubs when I was in grad school, and I got asked so many times about those in job interviews, you would be shocked. But there is power and credibility in that. If you say you're part of a club at school, a business is more likely to work with you, all of those things. So I get people are like, well, I can't find any contracts, or I can't find any companies, even though I'm, doing this for free. It's like, well, join a group, join some societies, join communities. That's a great place to find them. So I'm really happy that it went down that direction, because that is such a cool insight and very, very subtle, but important, I believe. So let's move on to your more recent job with said FAANG company. What was that interview process like? You said that your pro bono consulting really made you stand out. Were there any other things that helped you stand out as well? And do you have any just broader tips for approaching that process?
Yeah, for sure. So the most important one is the resume, because that's what gets you through the first kind of cut, and that is by far the hardest one. So on my resume, there was the pro bono consulting that I think made me stand out. I also like just in general emphasized a lot more on the impact of my work, and also I did a startup a while back, so that's something that I also emphasized a lot, because that combination made me like seem like I was very good at communicating. I had leadership skills, right? And these are things that are non-technical but are extremely important. And this is something that a lot of people don't highlight so much on their resume. And that is what I believe made me stood out and was able to pass through that first round. Also, of course, I did plan for having that internship and other data science experience as well. So, if you have like zero data science experience or related experience, then it's really hard to get through. So it's like that combination.
I think I've also never said this before, but it's really important to have a story. So if someone reads your resume and they can go through and see all of the logical steps and they get why you went to each of those different places. For you, it's like, okay, bioinformatics, then data science internship, startup somewhere in there, she got these types of skills. And then now I'm applying here. I've done my pro bono work and that might be relatable to what they're doing at this company. Holy crap, like that story tells them exactly how you got to their front doorstep. And if they get that, if it resonates with them, they're probably going to put you through because that's the next chapter of the story, right? It just makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a really good way of putting it, like telling a story through your resume. Yeah, like that was perfect.
Nice. Well, the other thing you brought up is the soft skills. And I cannot stress enough how important I think they are. But no one that has good soft skills will tell you they have good soft skills, right? I wouldn't come in and say, Tina, I'm a great communicator, right?
Yeah.
And you see that so much on resumes. You see that someone says, I'm a leader, or that you say that they say, I'm a great communicator, those things, and it's just in a soft skills section, right?
Yeah.
I almost always just like put an X through that box because that doesn't tell me any of those things. If you've worked with a team, if you led a team of 4 people to a successful project, that shows me that you have leadership experience, right?
Exactly.
You really have to show rather than tell. And I would imagine, I hope that's also what you've experienced as well, is that you really want to be telling these stories rather than telling quote unquote facts that are not checkable. Like, I'm a great communicator. So
exactly. I actually emphasize this to people as well. Your skills section is not there to actually provide new information. It's a way of condensing it so someone can very quickly see what skills that you have. But it's up to you throughout your experiences to actually show that you have these skills. So yeah.
Perfect.
Sorry, for the rest of it, should I also talk a little bit about like the other aspects, the other rounds of interviews?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So that was like definitely so resume, most important thing. And then afterwards, like for me, I didn't know how to do SQL, so I had to go learn SQL. So that was very, very important. In general, like especially with big tech companies, they expect your SQL level to be at a point where you can like whiteboard something, where like, type something down and it is pretty much like perfection. You might have like a small syntax error, but it's pretty much perfection and you can run it. And that's the level that they expect you to be at. So I knew I had to get myself to that level. So I worked really hard to do that. Other aspects, it really depends on the company. Like some companies would be like, oh, you need to have like, some machine learning knowledge. And some companies would be like, you have to have some product sense, or like data sense skills. And it with data science positions, it varies quite a lot, except for like maybe the core things that are SQL and stats and probability. Those are like the 2 core things. And then the other stuff varies a lot, but it's really important to go and figure out that company and that position that you're interviewing for. What are they looking for? What do they ask you in those interviews? And then go, and it's your job to make yourself the perfect candidate for them by knowing exactly what it is that they're going to ask you.
And how do you do that? Is it Glassdoor? Is it forums? Where do you find out exactly what they're going to be asking you, or very likely what they're going to be asking you?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, I think Glassdoor is like the best resource, and it's also free, which is always good. So I literally spend the majority of my time, not the majority, okay, like a large section of my time, not actually studying for things, but figuring out what I have to learn first. I went Glassdoor and literally went through every single entry that I could find. And what I did was I started picking up that these are the things that show up repeatedly, right? Where this style of question shows up repeatedly. I write those down, and then I literally like rank them based upon the amount of times that they show up. And then I study that list from top to bottom. And if I don't reach the bottom ones, that's fine, because I cover the highest impact ones. And that increases my probability of passing through the interview.
Thinking about it like a data scientist, I like that.
Yes, rank it.
I love Glassdoor as well. my project from scratch series is entirely based off of scraping the Glassdoor stuff and looking at the what are they called? The job postings to figure out what skills and those types of things that people want. That could be a fun collaboration project if we scraped all the interview questions from Glassdoor and did some NLP on it. That would be very interesting, the data science ones. So we'll put a feather in that one, but that could be really neat. Regardless, I think that covers quite a bit of your story to now. And I'd love to hear more about, I know you started a YouTube channel. I'll obviously link that above and below. But what drove you to start that? What have you learned? What's your experience been related to that?
You did. No, okay, you did though. Like actually, you contributed a significant portion to me starting a YouTube channel. I don't even know if you remember. I reached out to you like a really long time ago when I first got my job. And you were so nice and you actually responded to me, which I did not expect at all. Yeah, by the way, guys, Ken actually responds to people. So that's like really refreshing. And I just chatted with you and, at that time, that just like realizing that you were, not somebody that's just so different from me and I could be someone that's almost like you, being able to make YouTube videos that can help people. So that was like kind of in the back of my head. I definitely wasn't like, wow, I talked to Ken, let's start a YouTube channel now. Sorry, but it wasn't. But that was like kind of, the first step. And then as time went on, there was like this combination of people like asking me questions that they would ask me like pretty much the same question a lot. So I was like, if only I had a YouTube video or a resource that I could direct them to so I don't have to repeatedly answer the same question and not do like the best job because I probably like will be missing stuff. So that's like something else that came up. And then finally it was like the quarantine. I was just really bored. So all those things kind of came together and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna start a YouTube channel. And the first video I did, I had like no courage because I'm actually really scared of all forms of social media. Like I literally just started using LinkedIn and I don't post on anything else because I don't know why. I'm just scared of social media. So I could not get the courage to do this. So I went to the gym and I was like all pumped up, full of endorphins. I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna film this video now. And that's why also my first video, I looked like, I went to the gym because I did. So that's how I started. And then I sent Ken my first video actually. He was like, oh, this is good. You can like, here are some things that you can probably improve on as well. Like, audio quality. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So I went and actually like fixed some of these things. And that's kind of how it all started.
That's awesome. Well, there's one thing I wanted to point out with how you reached out to me, right? I think that you did a really good job of connecting and writing a message that I would likely respond to. It might have been just slightly long for my taste, but aside from that, there's a huge element of one, like you thank someone for whatever their work, you say how you know them. So it's like, you came through my YouTube channel, I watch your videos, whatever that might be. But you also provided some sort of social proof for like, I just, I landed this data science job recently and, thank you or whatever it might be. But, these are some of the questions I had. The fact that you're committed enough to have gotten a job to me suggests that, okay, this person isn't going to waste my time, right? There are plenty of people that reach out that have never done a data science project, that have never even tried to research a lot of these answers online. And to me, that's like, well, that's a really low hanging fruit. It's not that much harder to Google something than it is to send me a message. And I feel like that's a little disrespectful of my time sometimes. So, in your case, you would obviously put in a lot of the legwork already, and you're asking questions that, are unique to you. They aren't something that you could very easily find. And I will always respond, or almost always respond to messages like that if I have time. And that's the thing, is that I probably now get, between all of the platforms, 150, 200 messages a day. And so I do my best, but I obviously fall behind at this point. But if you want to get my attention, there's definitely some steps that you can take, or anyone's attention, to have a conversation. there's a right way to go about these things and a wrong way to go about these things. So I've talked about this a lot in a couple of the other interviews and stuff that I've done, but I think that that's one of the most important skills that you can learn is how to properly communicate with people online now, which everything is being done. So
Exactly.
I kind of droned on and on there, but those are all the questions I have. Are there any other things you'd like to talk about? Anything you'd like to share? The floor is yours for the remainder of the interview.
Wow, just drawing a blank. It's like when people during interviews, they go like, do you have any questions for me? And my go-to question is usually, what is it? Be like, oh, tell me a little bit more about your job. Why do you like this job? So Ken, tell me a little bit more about your I'm kidding. What do you love most about being a YouTuber?
Well, you can answer that one. See, this is different because they're asking you to ask a question in that scenario. I'm just asking you a question. But for me, if I must, it's being able to meet a lot of great people. It's being able to hopefully help in creating a community around this field. Obviously, you're a part of that in a big way now, being in the YouTuber data science fraternity. So I think that, I just would love to be able to empower more people to tell their own stories, more people to understand that, there's nothing special about myself or a lot of data scientists out there. It's just that we're interested in this, and there's a systematic approach for approaching this field and learning. And, you have to like it to become a data scientist. You have to enjoy a lot of the elements of it. So that's kind of my 2 cents. If you have anything to add to that, you're always welcome to.
Well, you pretty much just said that exactly. I should take notes. Someone goes like, why do you like being a YouTuber? That. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me as well. Especially because, I'm pretty extroverted as a person, but I don't usually go around talking just randomly to people or trying to inspire people. I'm not a social media influencer. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, and I started this because I realized that there's lots of people who are very similar to me in a way, and they want to go into this, and I am in a position where I can help them, and I'm able to tell them how I got there and things I could have done to do it better. So I feel like it's almost my responsibility to be able to help these people, because why send someone down all the problems that I had in the past when I could just easily tell them this is what you should do if you want to go here, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, it's funny you say that. I'm getting that feeling now also with YouTube, where there's quite a few people like yourself who have awesome YouTube channels, and I'm like, wow, I wish I had someone that I could have asked questions to when I was just starting. You guys have it so easy.
Yeah, no, actually though, it's like Big Brother Ken. It's like, Ken, I don't know what to do. What mic should I use? I don't know.
Well, there's now people hopefully that I found that they can give me those types of that type of advice as well. I'm good friends with Krishnak and Deval from Code Basics, and they've been really valuable mentors to me as well. I mean, I'm so happy with the community on YouTube and on LinkedIn. Everyone's been so supportive, and I would just hopefully like to pay that forward in any way I can, with the broader community here. So, as usual, thank you, Tina. Thank everyone for watching. This was awesome. I hope it's helpful to you all. I know I went off the tracks a couple times here, but hopefully you can still follow along with us there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ken. I'm sorry I made you go off track as well. That's
No,
probably
it's not you.
my fault. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. You are channeled. I have followed you since you had 1,000 subscribers. I didn't know if you knew that or not, but I have. Yeah, and I've seen your channel grow so much, and your content has been inspiring from day one. And I always appreciate your honesty. That's something that as you got bigger, that has never changed, and I'm confident that it will never change. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm blushing. Obviously, it might look like sunburn, but no, I appreciate it. Thank you again, and this was truly awesome.